Recognizing how lucky you are to play the game at any level only pushes you to want to continue to strive and work hard towards the end goal. On this episode of the podcast, we have Sam Tyler. Sam Tyler is one of Maynard's former roommates at Franciscan University, and you may recognize him from his infamous IG handle, the soft tossing lefty. This is my first time meeting Sam, so it was good to actually finally put a face to the name and also just learn a little bit about his journey. This is a little bit different from last week's podcast. We kind of had like a flamethrower on the podcast, and then we got a different mix, and it kind of just shows how different every athlete is and how they kind of approach training in a different lens, and how ultimately the result and the outcomes are still always the focus, but how we get there is always a little bit different. I love the insight that Sam provides into the online training world, especially with the way our industry is heading. I think a lot of athletes are taking that approach, and especially coaches, they kind of see how you can financially benefit from that. I think that Sam gives a really good perspective of how nothing will ever replace in-person training, and how we can utilize online training to still benefit the athletes. We also go a little bit deeper into sport specific training versus just training for a general qualities. So that was a good talk as well. And then lastly, we talk about how Sam approaches getting hitters out with a lesser velo arm. And I can attest to this as a hitter. Some of the best pitchers I faced were not pumping upper nines. Like, they were those low weight arms that had good secondary pitches and they can just consistently locate. And they almost just had that mentality that because they didn't throw hard, they were just better than you because they know that they've done it before to get better hitters out. And so I thought this was a really cool just perspective of college baseball, especially with the season officially starting up for all levels here soon. The timing was pretty perfect for that. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and we look forward to continually bringing on guests of all different backgrounds. And with that, let's get juicy. Well, we got our second guest here on the Juiced Up Pod. We got Sam Tyler, aka the soft tossing lefty. Soft tossing lefty is probably our biggest fan on the Juiced Up Pod right now. So this is gonna be a great episode. I personally, this is the first time meeting Sam. Nard and Sam roomed together at Franciscan, and yeah, we kind of became mutual friends through that. So Sam, welcome to the show. We're glad that you can join us today. Let's just kind of start with a little background about yourself. For starters, we'll just kind of get into like where you go to school, what year you are, and what are you currently studying at your school.
All right. Thank you, Grant and Mike, for having me on the podcast. I'm really happy to be here. I am one of the biggest fans, I'd say. I currently go to Franciscan University of Steubenville. We're a small Division III college in Steubenville, Ohio. I am currently a senior and I'm studying theology. But because my freshman year was technically, they called it a COVID year, even though we basically played like 35, 36 games, they still gave us the year back. So I still have basically 2 more years of eligibility left. So my plan is to get my master's in theology next year and keep playing baseball here.
That's at Franciscan.
At Franciscan, I mean, it would have to be honestly a crazy opportunity to like get me away.
Right. And so with the soft toss and lefty, how did that Instagram handle kind of come about?
Well, so like I joined Instagram maybe like a little over a year ago. And at the time I joined, I was thinking about, I actually kind of did start a short-lived YouTube channel called Soft Tossing Lefty. Because I was thinking, because like I was training with Tread at the time, and I'm like, okay, like it'd be cool to like do a vlog and kind of bring people in and show them what I'm doing. I mean, I think part of it was just commitment, why I didn't completely follow through with it. But and I think I was just like, who's gonna watch this? You know, like I think 75. Yeah, and it kind of, I think it kind of inspired Heidi Throws actually.
Yeah, it's good.
So
You didn't actually have to do the work of the editing and the
right.
production.
I like just go out Heidi Throws, like kind of say something funny and just kind of be like, yeah, you have fun editing, Heidi.
Yeah.
So yeah, so at the time I'm like, if I want to do this, I probably should start an Instagram. And I've been asked like, hey, you should get Instagram. I'm like, okay, why not? So that's why I originally kind of named it Soft Tossing Lefty. And I still use it as basically a personal account too. So that's why, like, if you follow me, like you see my story, me like putting stuff out about NASCAR and stuff that basically people non-baseball stuff. So, but
So just it's like your personal page too. You just turn it into that.
right, yeah, I
Okay.
turn it into my personal page to kind of put my own stuff out there as well. So,
That's
yeah.
sweet. That's sweet. Okay. So how's the homeschool situation? I want to hear a little bit more about that. Maynard briefly mentioned that you were homeschooled through high school. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled. So I went from kindergarten to third grade. I went to a Catholic school, and then from fourth grade on, all the way through high school, I was homeschooled.
Okay.
So I liked it. I feel like there's a lot of positives to homeschooling. I do understand like people worry about like the socialization part of it, like not being around kids their own age. I do understand where people worry about that. I do think there were some times like where it probably would have been nice to have been exposed to more people and kids my own age. But I generally enjoyed it, and I do think there's ways to combat that. But I really did enjoy it, and I mean it was good. I really did enjoy it personally.
That your experience with high school baseball with the homeschool
Oh yeah,
environment, and then maybe your
yeah,
transition to college as well too, if you want to talk to that too.
yeah. So I could have gone to a high school around me and just tried to play on their team. But like the school, basically all the schools around me, I'm from Arizona, the Phoenix area, and like are all big like high schools with like 3,000 kids. And it's kind of like, are you gonna really let a kid who doesn't even go to the school play on those teams? I could have gone to a smaller school, and I did actually originally try going to a smaller like charter school to play, but the school I was trying to go to, it fell through. I guess they didn't want me on the, I think they didn't let me on the team because I was homeschooled or give me an opportunity to try out for the team. So I started playing with this group. They're called East Valley Athletes for Christ, EVAC. And they were basically just a homeschool team. So like they have different sports teams for like basketball. I think they have flag football too. Basketball is their big one, but they also had a baseball team. And we didn't play like with all the public schools. We played with some smaller charter schools, and um, we even played some reform school kids, which they were terrible. They had really nice baseball fields though, but they were those were games where it's like after 3 innings, it's like 28-0. You're like, this is kind of a joke. But we play some good teams too, which were like it was competitive, and I do think like sorry, my friends are being jabronis.
Hey, tell Pete to shut up.
Yeah, they ain't
Probably
welcome on the pod
Heidemann.
yet.
It's probably Heidemann. Heidi throws. He's
Water
here.
bags or eyewash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta have below a 13 career ERA to be on the Juiced Up Pod. Tell Heidi. After a couple starts where he starts doing good, then we'll
Yeah, yeah. I mean, last year was a great pitch, but yeah, I got the track record. I I lost my train of thought.
I think you're talking
It-
about like your. I guess the question that I want to know about the homeschool stuff is like, I've known some kids that went homeschool, and then it sounds like you had a good experience with the athletic side of things, but I've seen some kids where they get to college and it's almost just like that culture shock feeling because it's like you didn't really play that competition growing up because it's just like who you play down the street and stuff like that. So did you feel that way when you got to college? Like, was it a huge eye opener for you, or did you think that you were kind of like well prepared through your like athletic career playing like in the homeschool?
I definitely think there were ways I could have been prepared better, but like I mean, there was some good competition in the league I played in. And then I also like in the fall, the last couple of years, I'd kind of play in some tournaments with a travel ball team. And I faced some pretty good pitching there, which I wanted to face really good pitching and also pitch against guys, but I was mainly hitting. Um, I do think it probably in a certain sense, I mean, it was completely different because like when we went to college, like suddenly we got a baseball field I can go practice to. I got a gym I can go to, like basically whenever I want, and I have those resources available to me that we're in high school. It was like you're taking people from all over the Phoenix area, and like you got to go rent a field for a couple of hours. That adds up, and then it's a few times a week, and like it was basically dad's coaching.
Mm.
So it's like you're not like probably getting the best coaching. And of course there's like no gym. So it's like, if you're lifting, you have to go do it on your own. So the resources there, it would have been nice on one hand to like have that. And I do think that would have helped in high school. But I would say like I did generally feel like I expected college was going to be a step up and that we practice every day. So I don't really think it was a culture shock for me.
What was that roster size like at home in the homeschool? Like, I know there's a lot of sometimes like a stereotyping with some of the smaller homeschool teams that it's like just 15 guys and they take whoever wants to play. So I'm just curious, like more of like the skill level.
So like my freshman year we had like 12 guys. My sophomore year we had 11 guys and that was the year I wound up playing third base. And then my junior year was we had like 17 guys and most of them could play baseball and we were actually very good that year. So it depended on the year because some guys would leave and try and play somewhere else and all that stuff. So it kind of depended. And we did have guys who could play. Like I would say of those probably 11 guys, like basically 8 or 9 of them were pretty good ball players.
Did you go on to play college or was it just you?
Um Honestly, the tough part too about that is my senior year, I basically lost with COVID. We played one game. So literally the last time I really saw any of those guys in person was the game we played. And I kind of lost touch with a lot of them. I do follow a couple of them. I was able to find a couple of them on Instagram. I think one of them, because I knew he was trying to play college, I think he went to a NAIA school and tried playing for a year. I don't think he's playing anymore. But I think of all those guys, like I was like I'm the only one still playing baseball right now.
Well, I mean, like
Uh,
reference. Sorry, go ahead, Grant.
no, kind of piggybacking off of that. So like with the exposure aspect to like getting into a college, I know even around here, like high school baseball, like no college coaches are coming out to a high school baseball game, at least in the spring season. Obviously, you got your travel stuff in the summer, but what was your experience with getting recruited?
I didn't get any exposure playing in the homeschool league or playing with the homeschoolers. I like I get don't I didn't really get any exposure either because I did play a little travel ball in the fall and some tournaments and that. And there was like we did one showcase for a bunch of JUCOs and NAIAs out in the Phoenix area. And they actually did evaluate me. And I remember on that evaluation, they're like, you're looking JUCO D3 for like where you are player wise. But like for me, I was at that time because I wanted to study theology. I wanted to go to a Catholic school and I wanted to go to a smaller, like very like passionately Catholic school. And so there was honestly a small list of schools I was looking at in the first place. What, Mike?
Us.
Fuss.
Us.
Yeah. So
The only school on the list.
there's actually a list. It's like the Newman Guide or whatever. It's kind of like these are like the 20 best like Catholic colleges to like send your kid. And the thing is like with most of a lot of them, they don't play sports. So it's like I don't want to go there. I want to play baseball, still play baseball in college. I wasn't like training. I was definitely not training the way I was now, but I wanted to keep playing in college. So like Franciscan like was I kind of like looked I actually did reach out. I reached out to Belmont Abbey, their Division 2, which I never got a response back. Not a shock. Well, then Franciscan at the time, they restarted their baseball program in the fall of 2019. So like they were restarting the baseball program. They were Division 3, and I reached out to the coach, Coach Carver, as Maynard knows him, Rick. So like there were some other schools, but pretty early in the process, like I came in, it was like the summer or fall of my senior year, I came and visited Franciscan because I was kind of learning more about Franciscan. Like, I think I want to look here. And then of course I reached out to Coach Carver and he was interested in possibly bringing me on. So like I showed up for basically a just a normal tour and I met Carver that morning. and kind of just told him who I was. I think he was mainly interested in me because he heard I was a lefty pitcher. So I had to tell him like, dude, I'm not breaking like low 70s. But I mean, Carver doesn't care.
Yeah, I think he recruited me because I bunted well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Carver's a big bunter.
Yeah, so you mentioned tread earlier, so I'm skipping through some stuff too, but talk about your training now and maybe how it's evolved over the years. Um, if you want to bash somebody, go ahead. Don't feel obligated to.
Oh yeah.
Me and Brandon made some of our we've had some discussions on the New Stuff podcast, but I just want to hear about some of the path where you mentioned you throw in the low 70s. So where are you at now and kind of what's that path been to get there?
So right now, I am still basically like low mid 70s. I've gotten to the upper 70s before. I haven't been able to consistently sit upper 70s. I've been up 70, 79 a few times. Never hit 80. Still trying to break the big 80. But especially like earlier last summer, like I think there was like a velo pound, I was like 76 to 78. I'm kind of like 80s coming around the corner, and then just what didn't happen. And right now I'm probably like I've been off a radar gun for a little bit. I'm probably like anywhere from like 72 to 75. And you want me to talk about what I've done training wise and maybe
Yeah, I
back.
guess like kind of like where were you started at training? So like how like what did your training look like in high school? And then like kind of how has it evolved over into college and like your routine now? Like what are you following? Maybe I know he's Maynard mentioned you were with Tread and the Armory as well. Maybe touch upon a little bit of that. We'll kind of we can dive deeper into and stuff like that. But
Yeah, so in high school, I would kind of like hit and throw and that stuff, but I wasn't working with anyone. I was very naive in how to like train for baseball. And like my parents didn't exactly know either. So like I just kind of did my own thing. Like I would lift a little bit and then I'd like just hit and throw. So it was really nothing crazy. And then like when I got to Franciscan and I saw how seriously guys were taking training, like I joined in on that too because I want to be a good baseball player, the best I can be. And after my freshman year, I wanted to focus more on pitching because I saw basically there was a need to be filled there for pitching. Like so I reached out to Andrew Williamson, whom you've had some interactions with online, Grant.
yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
I I know I love Willie though. He's a good dude. He is very passionate about the Florida Baseball Armory. I will say that and the water bag stuff, which honestly like I did the Armory for like from like May or actually it was like June before my sophomore year. It was like June of 21 to like December of 21. And I would say the big thing that I felt there that was beneficial was like I was consistently throwing. The part I didn't really like about the throwing though, like I understand like some of the drills and restrictions there, but what they were doing, but a lot of it was into a net. Like I started throwing bullpens on my own. They didn't program me to like throw bullpens till like September. I'm like, what is this? And then I was also like I was curious about the water bag stuff, so like I was trying it. I think the big thing is I still don't really understand entirely the purpose of them. I can kind of get the stability, but it was just kind of like I don't know. I felt like there were certain things with the training like I thought like for a lot of the workouts we were like doing a lot of water bag stuff and I'm kind of like why don't I just like deadlift or squat or like lift for strength more?
hmm.
Because like that's still
You
I still need.
mentioned like the throwing drills. So were they more like constraint focused? Like almost they were like almost like not just like regular throwing drills, but they were just trying to get you into different positions type of thing.
Yeah, there was a lot of different positions there that I was getting into. They had like everything like I forget what it's called. Heidemann does it where like his basically like what would be your back legs in front, and then you like have to throw, and then the leg switches.
Mhm.
It's I don't know how else to explain it, but like you're doing some drop ins, and yeah, it was constraint based, and
Did you find that?
like
'Cause I've been reading a lot about like constraint based training, and I use it a good bit with my athletes, especially for like sprint and jump training. Like, very rarely do we just do like a straight sprint. I think for the most part, like we'll do some sort of like variation of a sprint, and then maybe finish off with just a basic flying 10. Did you find that like the constraint throwing almost like made you think about throwing in a different lens, or did you just think like the drills just made you overthink everything?
I don't think for me the drills made me overthink things that much. I'm trying to think here. It's been almost 2 years, but I I don't think like mentally I was like very like I got to do this and that, and I don't think it messed with me mentally.
Mhm.
I would say the big thing like that I think helped me during this time was just throwing consistently. And I do think the constraint drills, I mean, do have a purpose. So I think those were helping me become a little bit of a better mover and thrower. But in that time, like I remember like just like I was kind of like, I don't know understand like the water bags really. I feel like there could be some things doing differently. I think like I'm also like not mobile at all. It's pretty bad. And I'm like maybe I need to focus more on that, and I there were just things I thought maybe I should do a little differently that the Armory was not doing. So
Did they give you like a customized plan, or did you feel like it was just a general one?
I would say it was probably pretty general. I felt like with them, with their at least their online, I was like I didn't really communicate much with the coach. Honestly, I think they forgot about me for a couple of months. But so like I didn't get a new program for like 3 months, I think, originally. So like it wasn't like I mean, Willie says they're different in person, so maybe that's the case, but yeah, I don't it wasn't very it was not like I felt like if you want to make it super specific, the coach needs to be more in touch with the player more
Right.
than that situation. So,
Right, because I'd imagine, like, especially when you're doing throwing, like, you'd want some sort of like a weekly check-in to see how things are
yeah.
progressing.
Yeah, like they kind of started doing that a little bit. And I would say another thing too, like with this and with tread that I did struggle with at times was the communication. Like, because like I get checked in, like, how are you doing? Especially with tread. They check in basic. My coach would check in every week, and I'd just be like, I'm like, I just like send them a couple minute video, like, hey, this is what happened, and here's some footage from the week.
Mhm.
So
So I guess, did you find like the online stuff to be beneficial, or did you just think it was almost a waste because you just felt like it was more like, do you think it was more kind of on you to take that initiative to develop yourself, or do you think that like the coaches actually kind of assisted you to get you better?
I I think that I mean there's gonna be no replacement for in person compared to online. I think that's something I've realized. Like they online they can help, but like there's only so much you're seeing when you're online. So I think that makes it difficult for the coach to help program this or that because you're basically just little things you see on footage, the little bit of footage you get, and then what the athlete's saying instead of stuff maybe you see in person. So I would say I think tread the online thing was pretty good. I mean, obviously they could do it. I think they could do it better, but I think overall it was a like with tread the online and the communication and the programming was a much better experience than the armory.
Mhm.
And another thing too, like I went to tread for 2 weeks between my sophomore and junior year, and that was the biggest like sudden velo jump I had. We literally just like started playing around with one
Like, you went
thing.
there in person?
I went there in person.
Okay.
And I went from like I remember before I was like throwing like kind of struggling 70, 71. And we literally basically realized we started playing around with coiling. And suddenly I got on the mound at tread and I'm like throwing 72, 74, pushing 75.
Wow.
And basically 1 week.
Yeah, dude, I've definitely resonated with that. Like, even I don't really have many online athletes. Like, I've dabbled with it a little bit, but I know that's just kind of the direction that the field is almost heading. But it's like I get it from like a like being on the floor perspective as a coach, because like the hours can get absurdly long and you can probably feel like you can accomplish the same thing. But like hearing that feedback, I totally resonate with that, because even like in person, I feel like you as a coach, you just pick up on so many different things. And like you said, they're just going to tread for 2 weeks and just making like that small change. Like it's hard to pick that up in a video. It's hard to like relay that back to an athlete where they can actually see a change. Whereas like in person, it's just like you can physically adjust the person to get them into different positions. Whereas like over on like an online program, you're just trying to like feed verbal cues, which for some athletes that just doesn't resonate.
Yeah, and then a lot of the times it's like I know with tread, like I think like a lot of those guys, like they get a lot of guys program. I think my performance coach told me he had like around 90 guys, like online guys. That's a lot of guys you have
Yeah.
to deal and under like so like you're not going to be on top of like they try to get back within 48 hours and my coach generally did. But it's just like, yeah, you're basically just relying, like you're basically hearing like 2, 3 days later something that if a coach was there could have given you instant feedback.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you're in practices and you're trying in those bullpens and you're trying to work with a trainer or you're working with a coach, you want that feedback right there. That hey, something doesn't feel right. I'm not the ball's not jumping out of my hand. I'm not feeling real like I'm getting into my hip right. What can we do to try it out? And yeah, and if they're not here, they're not. That's no good. 48 hours later, you've already moved on and figured out all that. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, and again, just relaying my secondhand experiences from seeing you go through that. I think there definitely is some utility to the online training. I think it's good in the sense that I think when you're working, I'm sure Grant, you know this too, but when you're working with a lot of players, eventually they kind of learn from you and they kind of get that autonomy. Like that was really beneficial for me with the trainers that I worked with. That sometimes you go there for a couple weeks and then they give you a couple tools like, okay, here's what we worked with, here's what you can work with on your own. But overall, when you're trying to diagnose the problems, when you're trying to make a velo jump, or you're trying to do something, it's very hard to do it on your own, just in the sense that you're really relying on just your ability to figure stuff out on the fly and just because I mean that's part of the appeal of a strength coach and it's been and any kind of coach for that matter is that they're the expert that they've seen thousands and hundreds, however many cases of athletes who have succeeded, who have had similar issues, so they can see stuff right there. They can immediately see it. And I think the other thing I would say too is when you're trying to set the videos and everything, you're almost doing more of the work trying to present yourself as opposed to just going out and playing and let them do all the work and fix you rather than you're doing all this extra effort on top of actually trying to get better. You're trying to present all the things so somebody can give you the feedback. And I think that's probably would you say I mean is that summarize everything pretty well? And would you agree with that? Or is there anything I'm missing?
I think so. And also like with the videos, like I'm not gonna send like an 8 minute long video of a bullpen. I'm gonna like clip a couple of videos, maybe some of my better throws, or maybe if I have one or two really bad ones where it's like, hey, like that. But they miss. There's a lot you can miss just doing online.
I think a lot of young coaches, they see like these maybe like the Tread Athletics or the Florida Baseball Armory having the success with the online route. But I feel like a lot of young coaches almost just hop into that side of things way too soon. And you mentioned kind of like with the Tread Athletics, like your guy had 90 guys. And I even looked at one time like the interview process with the Tread. Do you
Mhm.
think that like the coaches on the online side of things, whether that be Tread, like do you think they were like almost had too much on their plate where you just kind of felt lost in the shuffle, or do you think that they did a good job managing their roles, or like how would you describe that there?
I would say they did their best, but I mean 90 guys is a lot of guys to have. I would imagine like if you got like a dude who's like in AA or like playing Division 1 college baseball at a Power 5 school or something. Like they're gonna get more attention than some D3 jabroni who throws 72, you know?
Right. Would you say that they like the online coaches, or when you went to Shred, were the online coaches also floor coaches, or was it just kind of a mix?
Yeah, they would the way they did it there is they during the summer they had guys like they would be on the floor from this time and then their guys who are in town could come in at that time.
Okay.
So like it would be like say my coach was on the floor from like 9 to 1 p.m. 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So like I would come in during that time. So and there'd probably be a few. I'm so sorry with the messages. Can you hear that?
Yeah,
Can
but it's
Put
fine.
that one.
All right. Um,
Do not disturb. Who's texting you during a podcast?
anyways, I guess if it's not a big deal, we can keep it. Sorry. We were taught it's interrupting good conversation too.
So I have a. Well, I think we can. Are you good with that or?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
basically, all right.
So the one thing that I'm going to ask, and caution Grant, we might be hitting a sensitive subject for you, but you kind of mentioned that in the Florida Baseball Armory discussion that a lot of their training was subbing for lifting per se, that it was all kind of in one. So kind of where you're at now and what your lifting routine is, and how much of that would you say is like you're trying to be sport specific versus you're trying to just get as strong as you can and become a better athlete? Like what's your mindset now?
Right now, just for the like, because I ended tread in January, so I've been off them for a month. We currently have a personal, or well, we have a trainer at the school, and he just we're supposed to work out as a team a couple times a week. So at the moment, I've done that. But I will say I'm a little lost there. I think for me, if I like, there needs to be a good blend though of like strength training and then also maybe doing a little sports specific stuff. Like I know with tread, the way they like structured their list, it was like there'd be like a couple big movements and then a few like big movements, and then you'd add in some accessory, and that would be where some of the more sports specific stuff would be.
Yeah.
So I think like that is the way to go training wise. I'm just right now, I'm honestly not entirely sure I'm still trying to figure that out because this is the first time in 2.5 years I've basically been on my own. So
You still feel like you need that sort of push or you need that guidance maybe that you were getting with that you kind of get used to with the online programs? Or do you feel like now you can kind of compile it all together and use the good parts, pick and choose?
I feel pretty comfortable with the throwing and the mobility side of things that I can program myself doing those things. It's mainly the lifting where I'm still feel kind of lost.
Mhm.
All right. Well, it's
There,
it's an educational podcast. Do we have anything that lifting wise we can maybe impart on? Soft tossing lefty 48 or
Well, yeah, I guess I liked the way you described tread because that's kind of how I go about my things. Like you have I think the biggest thing is to not overcomplicate training, right? And I think that's the problem I have with the the sport specific approach where it's like you almost try to just replicate everything you do on the field in the weight room. And it's like baseball players are such creatures of habit already where you're probably getting enough of your sport practice. And so like when you're in the weight room, it should just more so just be training like general qualities, things where you're just gonna become a better athlete. So implementing like jumps and sprints, which I think a lot of baseball players don't do enough of because again, you look at your sport, it's like, okay, you're really only max effort sprinting to first base. Maybe if you're stretching on a double, very rarely are you doing jumping. But it's like what people don't understand is like compounded in a training system. That's what's going to make you a better athlete over time. And that's kind of my issue sometimes with like these almost like too structured training programs where you don't give the athlete the freedom to kind of explore some things out. And it sounds like you've had like a different variety of structures, which I think is a good thing, where you have like those things that you can kind of pull from. But yeah, so I think the biggest thing then is just like finding, and we talk about this all the time, is just finding something that works for you and then just kind of sticking with that. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of us we're not highly trained athletes where we need all these specific things to do in the weight room, like we probably just need to get strong. We need to try to learn to move things with intent. And like I think when we can figure that out, it's when we become a better overall athlete. But yeah, that's always my advice to guys is just keep things simple and like you really don't need the sport specific, like super specific type of training, you know?
Yeah, and I remember from Maynard's lifts, he did a lot of jumping because he did a lot of what you were programming, right, Grant?
Yeah, yeah. For you, did
Yeah.
you do that? Did you do that stuff?
I think I was doing a lot of the armory and tread stuff, and I was probably very much at that time like, yeah, I'll stick to what I'm doing.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you
you didn't
thought
have
I was a
to know that
lunatic with all my jumping, and then you tell me I had a good year, and you're like, well,
No, yeah, I see you hit like 330, hit a couple bombs.
yeah, and
Yeah,
you're saying, well, maybe the water boy isn't it. Maybe the
yeah.
yeah,
No,
you
yeah.
gotta find a squat rack or something.
I got memed for the water boy a good amount.
Yeah, you did. We
Well, see, like
certainly
I think you made a good point earlier. It's like I don't have an issue with the water bag until it starts to try to replace things. So like if you're training as a 60-minute session water bag, when you could just be max effort deadlifting and hitting like 30, 40 jumps and some basic accessories, that's kind of when I have the issue. It's like, again, why are we trying to like get all this rotational work in when like the athlete's not even strong enough to just like get underneath the bar and not collapse? So
Right.
so yeah, I think like the big thing with athletes is they need to just like fill the main bucket first, which is just get strong. Like you cannot do a lot of things if you're just not a strong athlete. Like that's just kind of the point of it. And like strength is a whole different avenue of stuff. Like obviously the mobility falls into that, your speed and your jumping falls into that. So it's like get that filled first before you try to go do the specialized things. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it, and it's kind of why I like meme the sport specific stuff. It's because it's like we have these untrained athletes that aren't even strong enough to be doing the basic things, and then we're trying to give them the complex things. So
Yeah, and another thing too, just about the water bags that I'm actually curious about is Andrew Heidemann has actually been doing a decent bit of water bag stuff, but he's also at the same time he's also strength training like traditionally.
mhm.
Like he's also lifting with the trainer too, like doing the team lifts and stuff on his own. So he's doing that part and he's getting stronger that way. So I'm curious if maybe like him doing the water bags too will maybe help him a little bit. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, and I think like when you compound it, it's just another thing to add in your toolbox in a sense. Like, but I think if you're doing again, it's like you could do strength training and then no throwing. It's, of course, if you're going to be a terrible thrower, right? It's like you can do
Right.
all throwing and no strength training. It's like I think we have to have that like that holistic approach where you get a good avenue of both. But sometimes I think, especially in the baseball world, we falter on siding more with just like the skill stuff where we don't get enough actual strength in the other category of stuff. So
Yeah, strength, it's interesting with baseball too, because it's kind of like strength is important, but also like you could put the biggest, strongest dude out there, and if he hasn't swung a bat, he's gonna go up and still like swing and miss and not be able to hit a baseball. So there's like the skill component of just being able to hit a baseball, hit it hard, throw a baseball, throw it hard, throw it over a plate, what, like 18 inches wide, and a strike zone similar to the size of a shoebox. Actually bigger, but not that big of a target. So like there's that skill component, and then so like it's not necessarily you see like the strongest guys are the ones who often like there's you don't have to if you're the strongest, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to be good at baseball.
yeah, yeah, dude. It's like so many coaches that don't understand the game. It's like again the opposite. Like if you're so, I mean that's what I was, man. Like I was always one of the strongest guys on the team. I talk about this all the time on social media. And it's like, well, I was a good baseball player, but I was nothing to write home about. Like I got the job done, but and again, it just kind of goes back to that point of like if you're only filling the strength bucket but not working on other things. Like for me, I was never mobile, and that probably attributed to me just not being as much of an athlete as I should be. And again, so it's like just taking a step back and kind of evaluating where you're at as a player is a big thing. One thing I do want to touch upon, Maynard mentioned you're a two-way here. So what does that process look like, and how do you think that has helped you see the game from a different lens? How has that also just translated into your training as well?
I will say being a two-way makes it pretty difficult to I feel it makes it difficult to train, especially for pitching, because on top of just pitching like at Franciscan, like with a two-way, I think right now I'm like throwing twice a week. Like I threw live today, I threw live Tuesday. Like Tuesday, I didn't swing the bat at all. But like today, I went in there because we were practicing indoors today. I went in there, I basically did my face 4 5 batters, and then I immediately went to go swing and hit. And it's like I haven't taken any swings and I gotta go hit now. And then like on the throwing side, like you gotta go field, you gotta go make throws from the outfield. Maybe a day after you throw a bullpen. So it can be taxing on the body. That's the big thing I noticed. Honestly, like from the game side of it, I don't I don't really know if being a two-way has really affected the way I look at things. Maybe a little bit with like kind of like, okay, maybe he'll go with this pitch and this count sort of thing. But beyond that, I mean, I don't know how much like being a two-way has helped me, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Especially for pitching, I think. Like there was like when after Maynard left, I actually tried to be a PO, but I got talked back into hitting, which I'm happy. I actually really enjoy hitting too. So
No, I mean, I think there's a reason that at the higher levels, like you don't have two ways because I think, yeah, like what you said, pretty much described what I was seeing day in and day out there. That it's you got a guy who's, and we see some of these pitchers training, like they're doing all sorts of warm ups. They're throwing their bullpen. They're doing high intensity stuff. Then they're doing the cool downs. You don't get that as a two way. You're kind of just supposed to just be a plug and play or it's just and I think like I mean I know like we all see Shohei Ohtani and we're like he could definitely be the starting center fielder for 29 MLB teams, but
Right.
he probably couldn't do that and pitch and hit
yeah.
at a high level. So I think that's the tough thing that I observed, not just with you, Sam, but with a lot of the teammates. Because I mean, when we were at Obanzi, I think we saw there were people that did it. I mean, it happens too, because high school, it's very common. It's not common in the pros. So there's that whole middle ground in college where you're kind of trying to figure out where you fit in, what you're better at. And I think there's a reason that people become POs and people just stick to hitting. No, just shifting gears. So what does it look? What's everything looking like now? I mean, your season's starting up pretty soon. What's the training look like? What's expectations for the season, and kind of where do you see yourself moving forward the next couple of weeks and months?
Right now, in practice, I've been throwing live. Before practice, I was throwing bullpens and basically getting ready to face live hitters. So right now, I've basically been throwing twice a week and facing live hitters. And then for hitting, getting live at bats when I'm not pitching, and then also like when we're outside, just working defensively there too. The big thing, like especially like the last couple of weeks I've done is try to work on recovery. So like sometimes after a practice, like I always do some sort of arm care to help with after I throw to like I'll hit like the rocket wrap compression floss thing and I'll maybe do some like forearm work and kind of just do a little bit of that and then maybe do some mobility and then maybe hit the sauna just to keep because I'm so tight, like I'm immobile. I just like doing that stuff, especially after a hard practice, is helpful. And then right so far, I've only really been doing team lifts, but that I need to branch out and start doing more of my own stuff the next few weeks. So
So you get will the team lifts continue into the season, or is that kind of on your own around the
once
schedule?
when we get to playing games, that's when they end. So at that point, I'll be responsible for how I handle my lifts, and I mean, that's I'm gonna need help there with the lifts and how to schedule that. I'll probably have to talk to you about that, Grant.
Yeah, we got you, man. We got you. One thing I am curious about being an arm that can't like burn a fastball guy by someone. Like, what is your approach on the mound? What is your approach to getting hitters out? Because I mean, dude, I'm telling you, like some of the best pitchers I've faced, like they were upper nines, like they were, low to mid eights with a nasty changeup. Like that's some of the best pitchers I've faced. So like, what's your kind of mentality with getting hitters out? Kind of understanding that, like, okay, I don't throw super hard, but like no matter what, I'm still gonna have to compete to get this guy out. Like, what's your mentality with that?
The big thing I learned, especially like from last year, because like my sophomore year, I had a pretty good year. Last year I got shelled almost every time I pitched. I think the big thing is just location. Like if you're throwing, I mean, if you throw 73 right down the middle, a good hitter is gonna obviously take advantage of that. So you need to locate your pitches well, especially the fastball. The big thing I just try to do is just keep it low. Just try and keep it low, generally away from guys, because if you leave it in, I mean, some guys can hit that, but like generally away, you at this level, guys will still get themselves hit a ground ball or swing and miss or something like that. Plus, I would also say having pretty good secondary stuff. So like I got a change up and I mean if I hang that again, it's in the trees. But if I'm able to tunnel that off my fastball, especially like low and away to a righty, I'm getting swings and misses.
Yeah,
And like add in the curveball too. Again, nothing it's it's got good movement. I wouldn't say it's anything special, probably more like 12-6, 11-5 sort of thing. I've been playing around with a cutter too. So I would just say the big thing is just good location, keeping the ball low. I mean, that's probably going to depend on level. Have movement on pitches too. Like my fastball, when it's on, has some good run to it, even though it's a straight four seam fastball. So like a lower velocity guy who can get a sinker going, like you're gonna miss barrels that way if you locate right. And then also having the off speed pitches to kind of change speeds. I would say those are the big keys
is the
to
off speed something you've developed over the years, or is that something you've always felt pretty confident with?
I would say I've focused a little more on that the last few years, especially since I've been pitching a lot more than I did in high school. And I mean, a straight fastball is not going to get guys out at this level very often. So, I mean, my changeup, I've tinkered with my changeup a lot. I've like gone, like I was circle change for a while. And then like last year, I was like trying to split change. That didn't really work out. I got good movement on it, but it just, I got hit around with that. So I'm like going back to the circle change and then curveball. I'm just trying to like get in front of it and get good movement and just try and get guys to look at it or pound it into the ground and hit it weakly. And then cutter, like now I'm developing a cutter too. So I'm like trying to find different ways now, like other offerings than a straight fastball to get guys out a lot more than I used to.
But what's everything looking like after Franciscan? Are you going to look to try and play at other schools, stick at Franciscan, not make any decisions or anything? But are you and what is maybe your pro aspirations? Are you trying to make it as a hitter, as a pitcher? What are your thoughts on that?
Plan right now is just to stay at Franciscan for the next 2 years. I mean, barring again, if I were to get a crazy good opportunity, which again, unless I think I mean, honestly, even if I like have a great season at the plate and just completely ball out, I'm probably not getting that. So most likely I'll be at Franciscan the next couple of years. And then after that, I would I would really like to try and play professionally. Originally, I was thinking, maybe I could do it as a pitcher, but now I'm like, there's no way I'd get anywhere as a pitcher. And so I've been focusing a lot more on the swing and just trying to do certain things to help me possibly be a better hitter. So maybe I could try and play independent baseball. And then I want to at least try and spend a couple of years trying to pursue that. And whatever happens, happens. I mean, honestly, like I think there's a part of me that just thinks I'm still lucky to be playing baseball, as like to have the opportunities I've had to keep playing. So I'm just gonna work hard, work my butt off, and try and get there. And if it doesn't happen, I gave my best effort, and yeah, it is what it is.
That's awesome, man. That's really all you can do. That's all you can do. Has the opportunities and like experiences you've had with like some of the Tread Athletics programs, the Florida Baseball Armory, whatever, has that inspired you to get into the like the developmental side of things at all? Or do you like after baseball's done? Or do you think like once you're done playing, you'll kind of like hang it up, or do you think you'll always kind of be around the game still?
I think I'll be around the game still. I think the big thing I just feel like with the like developing players and that is I still have I'm still learning all this stuff. Like 3 years ago, I didn't know any of this. Like most of what I know, and I would say es- especially working with Tread, like seeing the stuff they do that and like going through stuff and under like I learned a lot, and I'm still trying to learn a lot, and I hope I I would like to coach. I don't know if I'm gonna be if I would like to be like a performance coach for like individuals or like coach of a school, but I do want to stay in the game after I hang it up. So
You got anything, Nard?
I'm good. I think that's good on all the baseball stuff. I mean, anything else you want to add to the juiced up listeners?
No, man. I think that was solid. I liked hearing your story. It gave me a different like perspective. I really like the online versus in person kind of perspective you had too. I think that's big. I think that's a big thing, and just especially the way like culture is moving. I think a lot of more athletes are going to take that online approach. But I just like the perspective you gave on that. So,
yeah, it's
you got anything
definitely
for the Juiced Up Pod?
um I don't know. I mean, do we tell Maynard stories?
No, no. Maynard don't like to bring his personal life on, so we'll probably keep that separate.
I
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
say
We had an interesting year in the dorm. That was
that was fun.
a lot of good memories. I think I sent Grant the one clip of our teammate Kyle. He was memeing the water bag one night,
Oh, yes.
like doing using a suitcase or something. So
Yeah, that was hilarious. You did that too. He did like a 3 minute video that I found out about months later, making fun of me like watching racing and just like
yeah,
it was pretty funny. I wanted to say though about like Maynard's season. Did he tell you how he has the hit by pitch record at Franciscan?
yeah, I do.
Yeah, he did.
Oh yeah, it's like crazy. It's just like 15 hit by pitches. Like in 37 games?
So I just remember the one story that I'll say is the kind of season it was is again that was the season I don't this part I'm comfortable sharing and everything because I know most of my teammates everyone know and everything but my grandfather passed away my senior year and growing up he was like always at my games and everything so he was very supportive God bless him in heaven he was still watching everything so like that was a very emotional time for me especially at Franciscan because they would like watch everything but I remember I literally had like a flight home scheduled the day after a game because I was trying to because I was going to go home for the funeral. So just the life stuff that comes in with baseball. But I remember in that one game we were playing, I was in a horrible slump. I was putting so much pressure on myself just because I wanted to do something special, do something heroic for my grandpa. And it's baseball, so whatever. But I remember the last couple at bats, which I'm thinking too, I didn't really know that. Those were a good chance. Those were my last college ABs too, so it was very emotional and everything. First at bat of the second game, which I know I told my coach I'm gonna have to leave at some point too, so I'll give you a couple at bats. Then I got to dip for the airport. But first at bat, hit by a pitch, come around and score, and I'm thinking, all right, that was pretty cool. Second at bat, I hit a wall. I hit a home. No, I got hit by a pitch. So at that point, I think I'm just laughing there. Everyone's like, "This is ridiculous," because I'm not
Yeah.
like robbing the pro plate or anything. But I think I stole a couple bases, came around to score or something. I think I looked at my coach. I'm like, "All right, that sums up my career here. I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm
this
going."
is my pitch legend.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean that's a good wrap up right there.
yeah, No, thanks for
Well,
coming.
Toss and Lefty, man, we appreciate you finally getting on the podcast. We appreciate all the support you've shown us too. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on. Thank you for just kind of like sharing some wisdom on your journey, and best of luck to the Fuss boys this year. Hope you all have a big year, and someone can take Maynard's hit by pitch record.
Thank you for having me on, Grant and Mike.
Yep, thanks, Sam.
Yep. Stay juicy.